Woo wisdom. In a previous episode, specifically the weight loss episode, I talk a little bit about gaining a shitload of weight in a very short period of time, which is, it really does up on you. It was a matter of 2 years, which is really only 24 months. I know some car leases that are just a little bit longer than that. And during that time, it's true. I don't know what it is about 40, but 40, your brain changes a little bit. At least for me, it changed a little bit, where I really had a hard look at what I was building and what I had done and where I was going from here. And a real second there to think about it, am I actually truly happy with where I'm at, and whether or not I had built the wrong thing. And honestly, that's where I got to. I got to that conclusion, is I built the wrong thing. And there was a lot of unhappiness, and a lot of that unhappiness was rooted in the clinic and the people of the clinic. And I take full responsibility for what I created, because I created an extremely toxic environment. I'd be the first to admit it. And I have been very reluctant to talk about it, because there's a lot of shame around it. There is a lot of embarrassment around it. There's a lot of failure around this, because, I had a situation where from the outside, it looked like it was a fun and go happy clinic, but it was anything but that. And there was a lot of struggle, and there was a lot of downs and not a lot of ups. It was just a really uphill battle. The things that I learned there were, ultimately, I had built a clinic and I had created a business model that wasn't serving me, or wasn't serving my happiness. And we were certainly giving a great product, and I still think that we are giving out a great product and a great service, and we're helping a lot of people. But at that time, we were helping a lot of people, but it was at the cost of my own mental health and my own physical health. I had given, for those of you who are solo entrepreneurs, or especially those doctors that are just kind of out there by themselves, it can be one of the loneliest positions in the world, because you are straddling these two worlds where you're running a business, and that business has to be a good model to be able to sustain the business. And then on top of that, if you have team members, you're having to try to give everything to them to make them happy. And then you're trying to give everything to your patients to make sure that they are healthy and happy, and they are receiving the best service and the best healthcare that they could possibly get. And along the way, I had grown very resentful of the clinic. And I got to a point where I was giving so much to this thing, to this clinic, which, I don't have kids. This is the closest thing to having, for me, having a kid is this clinic. It was everything. And my identity is wrapped into it. My ego is wrapped into it. And that is a really important point, which was, I realized at some point, when I actually looked at what was coming in, how the business was actually run, the only reason it wasn't a good business and the only reason I had expanded so large was out of pure ego, because it certainly wasn't out of pure business sense. On a business sense, it made zero sense the way that I was running the clinic. And I had come resentful because I had given so much to this entity, and this entity was slowly killing me. This entity that I was giving so much, I had so much resent for it because I couldn't give any more, and the clinic was like revolting against me. And there was nothing I could do. I did everything to try to change things to get them to another place, but it didn't matter what I did, because I had created a situation in which there was no coming back. I opened Pandora's box. And for those of you that I am grateful, I am truly grateful for the journey that I have been on. And it has taught me so much about myself. And it has taught me a lot about managing people and doctors. And it's taught me a lot about business. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it was my journey. And I needed to learn these lessons the absolute hardest way that I could. But I would tell my younger self, what are you doing? Are you doing this? Being crystal clear about what you were doing and why you were doing it, because I wasn't. And at the end of the day, I want to be happy, and I don't want to be resentful of the clinic. And where I had realized I made some grave mistakes is, one, I opened these clinics out of pure ego, meaning for me, it was more important to say, I have 3 clinics and X amount of doctors working in these clinics, and we're working on all of these interesting athletes, it was more important than, one, my own health, because I knew I was suffering from something going on in my stomach. Like, I got to a point where I was like, it's either an ulcer or stomach cancer. Either way, I rationalized it by saying, I don't have the time to get it checked out, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, hearing me say that now makes me think how fucking ignorant I was, and how enthralled I was, or entrapped by my own ego of like having this big thing. But it was really, honestly, like taking everything out of me. It had affected every personal relationship that I had. It affected me mentally. It affected me professionally. And so that's the biggest thing. The second thing was, what I learned is your own internal boundaries is your own way of creating self-respect. And I didn't have a lot of self-respect for myself, because I allowed a lot of disrespect towards me, a lot of boundaries that I let blur. And those boundaries were so blurred where I've had team members straight up ask me, well, if you're going to change the model, then I'm going to need to see your bank statements. I'm going to have to comb through all of your finances. This was an actual thing that a team member had straight up stated to me in a meeting when I was trying to turn things around. And that's when I knew that I had let boundaries get very blurred. And it's hard. Any one of you that's out there that is also the doctor and the business owner and is having to manage other doctors, they will, I was coming from a place where I was coming from an insecure place where I felt like I was always going to lose the doctors and I would never find anybody better than the doctors that I had at that time. But what I didn't realize was I was trading my inner peace. I was trading in my mental health to create. I honestly created this extremely toxic culture within the clinic. And I only have myself to blame for it, because ultimately I didn't put my foot down and I didn't create strong boundaries. I allowed these things to happen for many, many years. And then when I started to try to curtail it, of course, no one liked it. Of course, everybody was going to revolt against it, because in the past me was so insecure, so worried that I was going to lose these clinics and that I was going to lose everything, that I just kept my mouth shut and I just swallowed it. I mean, I wish that I could read you out loud the emails and text messages that I received over the years where I've shown my fractional HR mentor, and she was like, I don't know how you let this get so out of hand. And it's ultimately my fault. I think like the really two big lessons that, and I really want other younger entrepreneurs out there to learn from this mistake of mine, which is, one, take your ego completely fucking out of it. And business is very objective. There are hard numbers. You can strive for those numbers. And if you don't hit those numbers, or you don't hit those very solid outcome measures, quit while you're ahead. Two, your internal boundaries dictate your own self-respect. And once you start to stick up for your own internal boundaries and you stick to those boundaries, you will have more respect for yourself. And then that in itself will make you a stronger leader. I was not a very good leader. I did not have very good boundaries. I didn't have very good self-talk or self-respect at that time. And it ultimately led to the failures of Frisco and Plano. And like I said, I lived with this for the last 2 years. And to me, it's still very shameful. I feel shame about it. I just don't feel great about it. I mean, I'm still healing from it. I'm in a much better place than I was in the past about it. But there was just a time where I felt a ton of shame. I felt like everybody hated me. I felt like I was the laughingstock of the profession. And I just didn't feel very good about myself. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're like living this life for only really one person, which is the person that's in the mirror. So I choose to try to let it go every single day. And I choose to try to move and grow from this and be a better person and grow as a better leader and take one step at a time. Because along that journey, I really wanted to quit many, many times. And I'm thankful for having very good friends to talk to this about. And also I had very good mentors along the way that encouraged me to keep moving on and keep pushing forward. And there's never a bad time to reinvent yourself.